Thanks so much. Good evening, everyone. I don't know what the weather is in Jersey, but it's a cold, rainy night here in Georgia. That should be a song, right? I started with our little icebreaker. So let me fly in the answers. Is this, right, I may need a little assistance with, oh, here we are, advanced here. Okay, can everybody see the answers to all of these? The number 10, The Greatest Showman, I don't think that nobody gets that one, but so as a former full-time trainer, I'm obligated to start any kind of learning event with some sort of icebreaker. So we can check that box, and my training mentor can sleep well knowing that I did this. So I'll just sort of share. It's a small group. My goal in this is to tell you what data literacy is. Be an advocate for data literacy whatever organization you're in. You're a learning professional. If I can help you in any way, introduce a data literacy curriculum into your organization, during this call, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to have another conversation afterwards, because I really believe in this, and if I can help you put data literacy in your organization, that would be really rewarding for me. So let me know if I can help. Stop me at any time when you have a question. I'll learn from these things as much as you do, and so questions will help sort of press my understanding and maybe some new insights. Steve Tadeo, data literacy. I'll just share that before maybe people got on before everyone joined. I'm connected to this. I'll thank Sue Weatherall. She and I work together at Nokia, and she's sort of seen some of my data literacy talks, and she suggested that I'd be on tonight. So I appreciate Sue giving me, connecting me and giving me an opportunity to talk about it. I'll just, as a background, I'm in Atlanta, but I grew up in Philadelphia, so I'm just across the bridge from a lot of you. So I'll just offer that. Anybody from Philadelphia? I don't know. Or is everybody from Jersey? Please stay off mute and just jump in if you can. Yeah. Okay. So
New Jersey girl, sorry.
Jersey girl. Okay. I won't do the what exit thing for you or anything. So.
New York to New Jersey.
There you go. Okay. It's always nice to talk to somebody else. So let me just, here's the agenda. I shared this agenda, a few months back, and that's fine. I mean, I'm going to stick to it. It may drift a little bit, but the nice thing is, I've continued in this space at Nokia, and so some of my message has been enhanced, modified, hopefully improved from running data literacy programs here at Nokia over the past few months since I think agreed to do this talk. So, what is data literacy? We'll talk about that. What does data literacy look like? For those that want to implement a data literacy program, I can tell you how to do that, and I'll offer that it doesn't take a lot of resources to do it. There are free resources from a content standpoint that you can utilize, and so you could do this on a small, almost zero budget. And then the future of data literacy, because what being data literate today in 2022 is going to be different than it is a year from now, 5 years from now. And so I'll give you a little insight on what I think data literacy is going to look like going forward. I'll just begin with my path. So I own data training at Nokia, and that includes data science, data analytics, and data literacy. And I'll say that if I gave this talk 2 years ago, I'd probably give a talk on data science. 2 years ago, I believed that my mission in life, Nokia is 80,000 people, is I was going to have 80,000 data science, Python or R programmers. I envisioned the perfect world of having everybody in this company code. And so I pursued that as hard as I could, and getting people to take data science type training. And I noticed after a couple of years that the number of hours and the number of people taking data science training kind of hit a limit, at least the number of people. The hours continue to increase, but the number of people. And the way I described it is Nokia was a company of 100 people. About 15 to 17 of those 100 would take a data science class of any kind in each year. And the question popped in my head is, well, what are the other 83 people doing, and where are they in sort of a data space? And so then I started to investigate a little bit into this concept of data literacy. And I'll explain it more, but data literacy is not about being a data scientist. It is not going on the path of being a data analyst. And so investigating data literacy, got connected with a company called Click, started reading books. Ben Jones is kind of a leader in this space. He's got a couple of books out. And then Tableau is actually another good resource for data literacy learning. So spent more and more time, and that was in 2020. In 2021, I decided to create a learning program for data literacy and roll that out to a pilot, to an HR organization. Very well received, and I thought, okay, there's feedback here that says I think I'm on to something. Continued the year, actually wrote a couple of articles in the space. I think Jenny may have shared one article that I put out, and I recommend it, I believe in it, is that data literacy is data is the business language of 2022, and to function in 2022 and going forward, you have to be able to speak data. And so I kind of made the analogy, it's like traveling to a different country where you don't speak the language. You're isolated, you can't, it's hard to be, perform if you make the analogy to a business. So what I'm trying to do with the data literacy program is to have everybody in the company speaking the same language, a common language of data. And so I built these, I did a pilot with HR, I did a pilot with our financial chief CFO organization, I did a pilot with our sales organization. These four here, mentor, champion, associate, and executive. I have a learning program that comes in 4 flavors and different levels and levels of commitment. Continuing on for 2022, I believe that to fully embrace data and become a data-driven organization, you have to make changes to the way you think, mindset, the talent you have in this space, and also you have to turn it into practice. Understanding, data analytics is one thing. Implementing it is when business value is created. So it's what you think, what you do, and what you know. And so finally, in 2022, in about a month, Nokia is going to have its first, and we'll do a series of them, training programs, a data literacy conference. And we're going to have speakers internally and externally talk about data literacy. So we're trying to change the mindset of the organization by getting people, understand the value of data and data literacy. So, sorry, I messed up here, Julia. I've got a poll question, but if you want to throw out the poll, you can, or we can work from the slide.
The slide's easy. Just a few of us.
Okay, I'm sorry if you worked hard to get.
No worries.
Okay, so just kind of put it out, and please just shout out the answers. There's no correct answer. This is here for a discussion of the trillions of bits of bytes of data that are collected. What percentage of that data do you think is actually, analyzed? Somebody actually takes a look at it and tries to get some insight.
What's not analyzed, right?
It's not analyzed, right, Steve?
Oh, yeah, not analyzed. Sorry. Yeah.
99.
Sorry, 95, 99. Okay. So a little bit of a trick question. These are all data points that I found over time. And I'd say like 2010, 99% of the data collected was unanalyzed. 2015, 2017, 95, 90. And I think today at 2022, about 70% of the data is not analyzed, which is still a huge amount of data. So I think a couple things are happening there. I think the tools and techniques for analyzing data, are advancing rapidly. So the amount of data that we can process is increasing. But still, 70% of the data we never look at. And there's a lot of answers to, business challenges, world challenges, and that 70%. All right, so thanks for your guesses. So we'll move on. What is data literacy? Now, I threw this on here. It probably, I'll just put it out there. Sometimes I've given this talk, and there are people with different backgrounds. Like, maybe anybody know what this is?
No.
No clues. That's fine. It's totally fine. So
It's
now
an engineering. It's an engineering graph telling us.
who said
how-
that, Julie? Was that Julie?
Yeah.
That is awesome, because then, okay, so I actually remembered something from my engineering days. You were exactly right. It's called a Carnot cycle, and it is at the heart of something we practically use every day, and it is the heart of this. That's what, except if you have an electric car. Your engine is going through a Carnot cycle, and the bad analogy I'm trying to make is that I am not trying to, through data literacy, trying to make anybody into a mechanical engineer or a mechanic in any way. What I'm trying to do is get you to be a driver. So Power BI dashboards or Tableau, I'm not trying to get people through data literacy to become a data analyst that can create a dashboard. I'm trying to get you to know how to use one. How can you use the data on the dashboard to ask a business problem? So I'm not asking you to understand how a car works. I'm asking you to be able to use the car to do business things. Okay, so that's my bad analogy, but I won't do any more. Good job, Julie, on the Carnot cycle. If I had a giveaway, you would get it. So data literacy. So what is it? This is a definition that I think someone from MIT kind of coined, and seems to stick. Data literacy is the ability to read, work with, analyze, and communicate with data. And I put in here data literacy / data fluency. Data literacy is a great term, but if you're not data literate, it means you're data illiterate, which is not very complimentary. So I really wish that the working title would be data fluency, but data literacy seems to have legs. But you got to be able to read and speak the language. You have to be able to manipulate some data. I'm not saying, again, become a business intelligence dashboard creator, but you got to be able to navigate through a dashboard. I'm not sure if people on the call are using dashboards or whatnot, but you may have to sort of look at multiple dashboards. You might have to do some small calculations to answer the business question you're working on. And so, and then analyzing and interpreting questions. So this is what the data says, but what does it mean? And I think when you look at a data set, you bring your knowledge of other data sets and business contexts to help you to interpret what the data is telling you. A lot of people, sometimes they'll say, well, what does the data tell me? Well, it depends on what you ask. So a lot about data literacy is not making the answers, it's beginning with the questions. I think, what was it? Einstein had a quote: if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes formulating the right question, and then 5 minutes trying to answer the question. So questioning data is a critical skill in data literacy. And then the final one is communicate. And this is really, really important, because you can make a decision with data, but you have to maybe be able to share that with others. If you have total control of the decision, that's great. But you might have to find an advocate, a champion for your data, for your decision. And you have to be able to argue with data, because there are other people going through the same scenario. And so if you have the credibility of data and you can communicate that, then maybe your decision will carry the day, because you can make a stronger case. So keep on going. Just why is it important? If you, in learning and development, you probably see these workforce of the future studies. There's an article which I can share with everyone. McKinsey has a view of what data culture and data literacy look like in 2025, and it's everybody, broadband skill sets in data literacy throughout the company, not pockets of it, but the watermark for the company is high and consistent. There aren't pockets of excellence, it's across the board. And Click is an organization that has done a number of surveys, and it's surprisingly low, the amount that, like, the data confidence, the ability to read, write, communicate and argue with, and analyze and communicate with data. The number of people in an organization that can do that is surprisingly small. I'm going to look at the chat for a second just to see if there are any questions. Okay, I don't think so. So, and here is like my view: data literacy is the ability to understand data in context. Really important to say in context. In and of itself, data is just a bunch of numbers, but if you could put it in a context or even multiple settings, understand that, decide, and then be that advocate. That is the skill set of data literacy. And I believe companies that are data literate, they make faster, better decisions. Companies that are data literate can attract and retain and develop talent more effectively. And then data literate companies can take the collective skills and knowledge of the whole company and connect that through the common language of data. Okay.
Steve, there was a question
Okay,
about
sorry.
where did the numbers come from when you were sharing about the 99 to 95?
So that was just Google searches, that was just Google searches. It came from multiple sources. Deloitte, I think, was one. I'm not sure the others, but they were data points throughout like a 10-year period. I could track that down if you want, but I know Deloitte was one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. See, now that's a data question, right? That was perfect. It's like, Steve, you threw up some data here, but I challenge you on the data. If if you don't have a source, then I'm not ready to give you the 70%. So.
Thanks, Bobby.
Okay, this I just share this because you hear the word data, and then you hear data science, data analyst, big data, machine learning, and they get all kind of thrown together. And I think this is a good way of looking at analytics and what a data literate person can do, what a data analyst can do, and what a data scientist. And there's probably other roles in here. I'll talk about these descriptive, diagnostic, inferential, predictive, prescriptive in the next couple of slides. But I just wanted to share that the data literacy is really, you're just kind of getting going. You're understanding basic analytics, your ability to manipulate through descriptive and diagnostic data is in the formulating stages, although you may understand more advanced analytics. And that's where it comes from. It's like, if you're data literate, you can do certain things on your own, so application skills, but you probably understand beyond your ability to apply. And that's where you can have conversations with people with skill sets in higher order analytics. And I think that's where the value is, because you can say you're a salesperson and you have some customer data, and you think there's some algorithm that can cluster customers together so you can market to them or sell to them differently. You may not know how to do that, but if you have an understanding of the various types of analytics, you can at least have that conversation with that data scientist or data analyst. So that's part of the communication of data literacy. The first level of analytics is descriptive analytics. And these are basic counts, minimum, maximum. Here's a slide here. I do a Power BI dashboard for our data science consumption at Nokia. And you can see, what courses that they take, how many hours, how many learners, hours over time, where is the focus of the training. So I kind of grade out organizations there. I don't know, I just didn't want to share that, but that's what that is, the organizations in the company. But this is the basic level of analytics, and they're very important because you can't work your way to the higher order analytics unless you understand these. but I know that companies spend way too much time in descriptive analytics because the ROI at the descriptive analytics world is pretty low, but it's easy to understand and we spend way too much time there. The next level up is diagnostic. And I think I got a couple fly-ins here, but diagnostic analytics talks about not what or how many. You begin to answer the questions of why did it happen. So if there's an organization and here are their training metrics, I'll just pick on this one in the middle here, 3,700, whatever that organization is. Okay, that's their total. But if I look at that 3,700, I could see that there's suborg 1, 2, and 3. Where are their hours? So you could see that at the highest level, it's 3,700 hours, but most of that is happening at organization 1. So it's a little bit not how many, but why. And then finally, you could drill down even further and you can say, well, what are those 3,700 hours? And as you can see, most of the training is happening in this intro to data science. So diagnostic analytics, why did they happen? And a lot of diagnostic analytics is drill down, where you're just trying to find, why that top number, where did that come from? And then lastly, and I'm just going to talk about these first three because this is where I got to get that Nokia internal use off there. Sorry about that. I got to get inferential analytics is about sampling. And I guess, elections are probably the time when we all start thinking about sampling. But if you do any surveys within your organization, what is the sample size that you should take in order to make a statement about that group? So, perfect inferential analytics is if you have 100 people, you survey all of them. But in the interest of time and speed, you can. But you can get to the point where you can sample a size and have some confidence in that you have, you have an answer representative of the group. So for the data literacy space, the program really focuses on descriptive, diagnostic, and inferential. And I'll just fly in this real quick. Descriptive analytics, and this data, I'll just say this is a small sample study. Nobody's really figured this out. I'm just doing this for illustration. As you move up the analytics continuum, the impact of those analytics studies have greater value. And so again, the data here is mostly for illustration, but if an organization spends 70% of their time in the descriptive analytics world, you could see the dark blue, and the rest of their time, in these other areas, maybe they get like 162% return on their investment. If they start shifting to the middle blue, where they less descriptive, more diagnostic, more inferential, they can pick up 20 points in their business impact, and depending upon the size of the company, that 20% can be significant. And if you can actually get to the point where you have a balanced view, where people are doing analytics in all 5 of these buckets at a balanced level, you can increase by 100 points your return. So the point being is that these more challenging analytics create greater business impact. Okay, here's the second question. I may have given this away by talking about it, but what is the number one reason? I'm in a negative mode of saying not and fail, but the number one reason data initiative, data transformation, data literacy, any kind of analytics program, what's the number one reason that they fail? And you just guess it out. And when I say learning and development programs, they don't have the right learning and development program. Data access, they don't have access to the data that they need to solve these problems. Culture and mindset is pretty straightforward, and we don't have leadership endorsement. Any guesses on where do you think that the number one reason for failure?
3.
So 3?
Mm-hmm.
Culture and mindset.
I said 4.
4.
Yeah, I'd say 4, leadership.
Okay. Culture and mindset. I think leadership is important there too, but actually the number one reason, this does come from Deloitte, culture and mindset is the number one reason. And I'll talk about that more. But culture and mindset creates the environment for people to commit to data and data literacy. And so until you can, I was talking to a guy with Salesforce, and he said, until you can change the culture and mindset of the collective organization, it doesn't matter how good your training program is. And it doesn't matter if your data is transparent, everybody has access. You have to day-to-day create a business environment in which people want to lead with data, or people in decision-making positions won't accept anything unless it's data-driven. So, okay, so what does it look like? I'll just go through a couple of these here. It's kind of like we're all trying to be data literate and data driven, but how do you know when you're data literate? How do you, that's the journey. What does the end point look like? I'll just do a few of these. One is really the number one skill set in being data literate is questioning data. Like, do you have the ability to look at some data result and push on it? Is this really make sense? Because data, a lot of data that's analyzed, it's not clean. The sources aren't reliable. I mean, that's a huge problem. So the first thing about being data literate is just don't accept somebody giving you a data response. You press it, and we've got good examples on this call. A couple people questioned where I got some of this data from. The other thing is understanding, I think I'm going to jump around here, understanding that data can create opportunities. I think data used to be viewed as sort of a burden. Like maybe 15 years ago, people were selling data storage, in the cloud. People were collecting data and just putting it up at that, 99%, 95%, and so forth. I think when you flip and become a data literate organization, you realize that data is not just something that you capture for the record. Data is something that you can use strategically and leverage. And I think all companies are doing that. And that's why you'll see a lot of companies. Have you heard of a chief data officer? This is a role that companies are now investing in. Anybody? I don't even know the size of your organization. Does anybody have a chief data officer?
No.
No.
I know people who are.
Really? Okay. And particular, probably, is it big organizations or?
Yeah, they're definitely larger organizations. Life science.
Okay.
Life science, healthcare.
Oh, okay. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Who has more data than? I forget. Did you say you work there, or know this?
I used to work in life science, healthcare. Now I consult for scientists to help them communicate the data that they have and they generate. So I hear you, Steve, with all of this.
No, so that's
Yeah.
great. So yeah, okay. I mean, healthcare, that's endless data. That is nirvana for data scientists, data analysts. There's just so much healthcare data out there, and I really believe there's a lot of answers to maybe our whole healthcare system. I mean, I'm not going off on that tangent, but I think there are a lot of things we can learn from that data we collect. Balanced data experience and critical thinking. I am not saying that everything goes. You do a data set, you do analytics, and it flies against everything you believe or your experience. You just go with it. What I'm saying is that it's another tool in your arsenal in making data decisions. So if you have business experience, that's great. Critical thinking skills, that's great. If you could just blend data into your decision making, that's great. Driving, using data to drive future actions. I see this all the time. We get on a call, in 30 minutes, we make a decision, and then we're off. By definition, that can't be a data-driven decision because you didn't look at any data. And I think a lot of times we make decisions, and then 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, we start looking for data to see if our guess was right. And if you did it data-driven the first time, you still might have to adjust, but I think there's business loss in making that best guess and then seeing what happens. And then finally, the last two, being data literate is not thinking that the other person may or may not be data literate. You just start having a data conversation with them. And also being an advocate for data literacy. And actually, I'm connected with a group called Be Data Lit. I'll give them a plug. They're advocates for data literacy. And I think that's how you get the word out, and that's how you get critical mass in the company that's data literate, by just being a proponent, being someone that advocates for, you recognize data literacy, you promote it. I think that's a big part. So, okay. Another poll question. So, and this comes from Click. This was a Click survey that it did. I think it was like 7,500 decision makers that they surveyed. And it was a question to data literacy. What percentage of business decision makers surveyed are fully confident in their ability to read, work with, analyze, and argue with data? Any guesses?
25%.
50?
50. Well, the sad reality is, and I will say this survey is 3 years old, so apologize for that, but it's 25%, which is just shocking to me, that the number of people that decision makers that feel that they are confident, and I believe that, because just sort of anecdotally, I was at a party, and I was talking to a sales manager, and he said, Steve, we use data all the time. I'm so data driven, it's unbelievable. And then a little bit later in the during the night, he stopped me. He says, to be honest with you, we have a lot of data, but I don't really pay attention to that. He said that, like, data schmata. He says, I do it on gut feel and experience. And so, I appreciate your honesty. I work in this field, but I think your honesty. But I think that happens a lot, and it's either because they don't have the skills to do it, they're afraid to do it, or maybe they got to where they got by not making data decisions. Why stop now? And that is a big barrier that companies face, is that a lot of leadership, they're there, not necessarily through data-driven decision making. And it's difficult for them to turn it around, sort of at that point in their career. Just looking at the clock here, I should have timed this. When I did it myself, I got through this in 20 minutes. So just kidding. I'll just tell you a little bit about, what I think, and I sort of talked about this before. What are the critical components to an effective data literacy or any data program? And I put this up here, the title, Fulfilling the Promise of Data Analytics. I think a lot of people say they want to be data driven, but they're just kind of waving the flag because they know that's the right thing to say. A lot of companies have invested in data analytics, but they haven't broken through and got a return on their investment. I think the path to that is one, mindset, talent, and practice. And actually, the next slide does a better job of it. It's what you think, what you know, and what you do. And I think any one of these, if you don't have all three, you can fail. If you have talent and practice without mindset, then you don't have a business environment where these things are valued and embraced. If you have practice and mindset without talent, well, you can't do anything without the people that know how to do analytics and move it forward. So you have demands beyond your skill set. And then mindset and talent without practice, understanding it and having the environment for it is not doing it. And companies, and I'll just say as a training organization, I am focusing more on the practice part, because I know I could, quote unquote, train you. We have great content, we work with great vendors, and there's a lot of content out there that's really good for free. But the application part, and maybe I mentioned, so when I run this data literacy program, it's not only about the training, it's about the application of this training. And actually I could talk about that, maybe that's coming up. Just as a feel, not one flavor fits all. I have 4 different personas with different hours of commitment. I got some feedback from a pilot saying, hey, there's required to get my badge and graduate, but I'd like to know a little bit more. So I created a curriculum with not only required learning, but optional learning. So if you do this, I'd recommend that for that student that wants to know a little bit more in one of the 4 areas, read, work with, analyze, and communicate. Somebody may want to know more about a certain area. And if you can sort of set up a curriculum for them that allows them to extend their learning without jumping to the next curriculum, that's how I met that need. Here is my data literacy program. And so what I do is I do a kickoff webinar, and where I talk to people about, what is data literacy, just like I walked you through. I give them some examples of, I go through the analytics continuum so they know where data literacy fits in. I talk about some data basics. There's a funny website you can go out there and about correlation. And it says the number of divorces in the state of Maine is almost perfectly correlated with the amount of butter that's sold in the United States. Absolutely no relationship, clearly. But it's kind of a funny way of saying, like, if you don't really understand what correlation is, and it doesn't mean that's the cause, they're just correlated, you can make some bad business decisions. So I give them a little anecdotal view on that. I have a job aid that people go through, and that's 15 questions, and lets you help pick your persona. If anybody reaches out to me afterwards and wants to know more or wants to share some of these, I'll be glad to share anything that I put together in this training program. Like I said, a lot of the content is available free. The 4 personas, people go off for 6 to 12.5 hours or so, roughly give them a month to do that. And then I create a domain-specific exercise that they work on. The way I position this is, if I'm working with sales and I can get a sales exercise, then it's the outcome is so much more rich based on the business knowledge of the people in the organization. And actually, moving forward, when we roll this out, we're going to have people actually come to the training program with a business problem and hopefully a data set to solve it, so that their manager doesn't say, well, I don't want to send somebody off for 12 hours of training. If you do send them off, they can solve a real business problem for you in a structured environment of a data literacy program. So it's not like you're not working while you're training, it's you are working while you're training. And then finally, we do a readout to the sponsor to let the sponsor know, what outcomes do we do? And we did one last year with some sales data, our voice of the customer. And then we did a follow-up meeting with the people who ran voice of the customer service and gave them some readout on what the students came up with relative to the data they looked at. I'll just highlight here data storytelling. Data storytelling, and I don't know if people have heard this term. It's getting traction. I think the way it's said, it's a new thing and it's been around forever. Humans are wired for story, and I think it's because part of your brain processes data, and the other part of your brain is narratives and storytelling. When you can engage both sides of the brain, students are 22 times more likely to remember that. So data storytelling, I really strong advocate for that, and I think I share a resource there where you can learn more about it. Final question of the night for double jeopardy: what organization should lead analytics initiatives? Now I'm leaning hard on Deloitte, and this is from Deloitte as well. Any guess on what? And they did a survey. Yeah.
This is a really charged question.
Okay.
I guess I would say number 2 or number 4.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know what? So gosh, I didn't realize I was making so many trick questions here. These are all close.
Look, Bobby said business units, so we're all over the map here.
They're all over the map, and that was actually the result. There was no critical mass. I think that the number 1 was the chief information officer, but not by much. There's like 10 points in between all of this. Oddly enough, number 2 was chief financial officer, and that's kind of the point I was trying to make with this question. Is like I would have never thought that at all. But I think companies over the past, my professional life, it's a cycle. and companies always fall back. Like the CEOs for a period of time always came from the CFO organization. The study said that since the financial office touches every part of the organization, they're already embedded, that might be a nice place to launch them. Now, personally, I'm trying to do it through the learning organization, which wasn't listed here at all. So maybe I'm swimming upstream on that one. Okay, so the future of data literacy. So I'll just share maybe from 3 points. What does the data literacy look like in 5 years, 10 years? My view, and I think I mentioned it, is that the continued commitment of organizations to have broad, spectrum data literacy in the company, I think that's going to continue. And I think what you're going to get at some point in time is you're going to hit an inflection point where there are more people in the company data literate and able to do small analytics exercises by themselves. And the data scientists and the data analysts can be freed up to do more advanced stuff. I mean, we see it all the time. I see it here. It's like, if you can do something locally, just as a data literate person, you may be able to get some analysis that would chew up some resources of a data analyst or not get analyzed at all. And I think in that continuum, analytics continuum of descriptive, diagnostic, and so forth, I think as more people become data literate, then that distribution of analytics becomes more level. And then as I mentioned in my little ROI exercise, I think more the ROI collectively for the company increases. So I really see the watermark for an organization across the full spectrum of data literacy and analytics, that just completely rises. And if you've heard the expression area under the curve, the more people doing analytics studies rather than data scientists hitting home runs every once in a while, I think that is where the collective advantage is. And I think there's a race going on now. Companies, I mean, I'll put the FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, like they're different. They're not companies that use data. They're data companies. So kind of put them off on the side. But I think we're all moving in that direction. And the companies that can operationalize and become data literate at critical mass, I think they will have a strategic advantage. So why not us? For Nokia, next steps for Nokia, as I mentioned, we have a data literacy conference in April. I was hoping to do it in March, but we're going to do one every quarter. And the message is we are committed to data literacy, and we're going to keep on hitting it because changing the culture isn't a one and done thing. So we have this data literacy training program. We have this data literacy conference in which we're going to have internal and external speakers, as well as internal and external speakers, and in addition, customers talking to Nokia employees about data literacy and the importance of it. And then I'll just say, what is the future for ATD Mid and Jersey? I don't know. If anybody is interested, like I said, in implementing a data literacy program or learning more, please find me on LinkedIn, or maybe we could share email addresses here. It doesn't matter. I think if you're on your data literacy journey personally, on your data literacy journey professionally, part of your organization, I would love to be connected to that, because share from my experience and learn from yours. Here's a couple of resources that I'll put out. I mentioned Ben Jones. He's kind of, I think he may be the leader of the pack on this. He's done the most. I mean, he's published a couple of books, fun reading if you like that kind of stuff. I guess I do. The other thing is Data Literacy for All from Tableau. They are great because they have 7 classes, and the quality of the content is really good. Just go to Tableau Data Literacy for All. So if you want to run a data literacy program, that content is all free. Click also has a number of data literacy offers. They used to have 19 classes that were free, but I think they got wind of the fact that data literacy is a thing. and they took about 10 of their courses, half of them off, and now you have to buy them. But those are two sources. If you just don't want to spend anything, I would start at those. I put Bill Shander in there. Bill is heavily into data visualization and data storytelling, which I think are critical, because that's like when I said the communication of a data story. You can follow him on LinkedIn. He's got newsletters. I think he's super interesting, and you know, his data stories I think are super effective. And then finally, Be Data Lit is an organization that I've been connected to. They have a data literacy blog. I've been able to publish a couple things with them, but they are data literacy advocates. I'll give them a plug. Sarah and Alan, and they actually won an award for being Data Literacy Advocates of the Year for 2021. And they're actually going to be a speaker at the first Nokia Data Literacy Conference. So that's kind of, let me just see, make sure, I think that's the end of my talk. Probably wanted to leave a little more time for Q&A, but I'll go as long as you want. I'll take a deep breath. I think I've been talking for an hour, so sorry about that. But any comments, questions? I think I'll stop sharing, or maybe I won't in case somebody wants me to go back. Comments, questions, concerns?
There's a question from Bobby here that, don't you think the tools are getting better too? A lot of platforms are building in easily executed analytic models.
Absolutely. So I do think that the tools are getting better. So I can code in Python a little bit, and my son makes fun of me because he's really good in R. But I think there's a company called Knime, Knime, and there's another company called Orange. And they are affectionately known as, now this is a little up the analytics chain, but they are affectionately known as Lego data science. And so you can drag and drop and create predictive analytics models. But there's also, they're not cheap. RapidMiner is another one, Data Robot. I agree with you 100%, because as the tools become more sophisticated, then because a lot of time I'm spending, you know, we're learning how to code, that's going to become automated for you. It's like if you went back, you know, 25 years or so, Excel doesn't look like anything it does today. And a lot of those built-in functions function. So I think the answer is yes, I agree with that 100%.
I just want to say thanks, Steve, for sharing what you've been working on and how far you've gone with it. It's just, I come from the other world where, you know, I work with a lot of scientists and engineers, and I know how they deal with data and the questions they ask, and they start there. But to make a whole organization kind of think about data in a different way and apply it is nothing minor.
Yeah,
So,
no.
yeah.
But like, you know, I would just say, don't be afraid of it. Like, it's as my French say, it's not rocket surgery. It is a little bit scary, and okay, depending upon where you are. Okay, a long time ago I used to be an engineer, so maybe I'm a little less scared. But I would just say, don't be too nervous to get started. And I know people avoid it, so
Yeah.
if I've sort of taken the wrapper off it and made it a little bit less scary, then that's it. But honestly, look me up on LinkedIn if you have any follow-up questions, or if you try to implement a data literacy program, I'd be glad to help you with that.
Yeah, I think I want to tap your brain on the opposite end, where I try to get, you know, all that data communicated out, right? Have the scientists and engineers communicate it out so that's actually tangible and used, you know,
Right.
by everyone else. So that's a really interesting piece of the puzzle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, be glad to help. Maybe that's a data story.